Down below, the streets of Gangnam were a dizzying, relentless river of flying cabs, towering holographic advertisements, and millions of citizens plugged blindly into the digital grid. Up here, 80 floors above the chaos, Haru stood in front of an antique, gold-framed mirror, a rare, physical luxury in a world made of screens, adjusting the cuffs of his bespoke charcoal suit with fingers that were entirely too steady for a man who had nearly died less than 12 hours ago. In his profession, truth was never a moral obligation, it was a high-yield asset traded on the ruthless digital stock exchange of public opinion. As the star investigative anchor for K-Network, Haru lived permanently on the razor's edge of public adoration and corporate terror. His nightly broadcast was appointment viewing for every citizen, from the high-tech slums of District 9 to the gleaming corporate spires of the Central Hub. Politicians sweated under the white-hot glare of his studio lights, powerful CEOs resigned in disgrace mere hours after his razor-sharp opening monologues. To the adoring public, he was a fearless crusader for justice. To Haru, it was an adrenaline-fueled game of high-stakes chess where he always held the king, always anticipated his opponent's moves 3 turns in advance, and never, under any circumstances, lost until last night. Driving home through the damp, subterranean underpass of District 4, a shortcut he rarely took, a silent swarm of blacked-out cyberbikes had materialized abruptly out of the heavy artificial fog. Before his luxury autonomous vehicle could even begin to engage its emergency evasive maneuvers, a calculated hail of high-caliber sniper rounds shattered his reinforced windshield. A military-grade armor-piercing bullet tore through his shoulder, spraying hot, dark crimson across the expensive leather steering wheel, right before his car slammed violently into a reinforced concrete support pillar with a deafening screech of twisted metal. Most men would have been instantly paralyzed by the sudden, brutal shock of blood loss, the suffocating smell of burning ozone, and the terrifying, cold realization of impending death. Haru had simply slumped sideways over the wheel, wincing as raw fire lanced through his shoulder, and stared blankly at his cracked, smoking dashboard. His lead producer, Nabil, had sprinted down the ramp seconds later, hyperventilating as he ripped the gull-wing door open. "Haru, are you insane? They tried to assassinate you. Look at your shoulder, we need an ambulance now. The whole network is going to collapse into panic." Haru had coughed, tasting iron and dust, but a dark, manic grin had slowly spread across his pale, sharp-featured face. He had reached out, grabbing Nabil by the heavy collar of his jacket and pulling him close despite the agonizing white-hot pain shooting through his arm. "Check the live network analytics on your terminal, Nabil," Haru had whispered, his voice raspy, low, and laced with absolute triumph. "Look at the live spike. With this footage, tomorrow morning's ratings are going to shatter every record in the district. They just handed us the greatest broadcast of the year." The following morning, Haru's VIP hospital room looked less like a sterile medical ward and more like the green room of an international music awards show. Massive floral arrangements sent by terrified corporate sponsors spilled out into the hallway, flashbulbs popped rhythmically through the smart glass partition, and overworked nurses tiptoed frantically around shouting camera crews who were desperately trying to catch a single glimpse of the wounded star. Haru lounged lazily against a mountain of goose-down pillows, wearing a designer silk patient gown that cost more than a junior producer's monthly salary. One arm was immobilized in a sleek, carbon fiber tactical sling, but his good hand flicked effortlessly across a holographic tablet floating in the air, reviewing the unprecedented, astronomical surge in morning viewership. Suddenly, the deafening, chaotic noise in the hallway vanished. The shouting cut off mid-sentence, replaced by an eerie, sudden silence followed immediately by the heavy, rhythmic click of tactical combat boots on polished marble tile. "Clear the way. Metropolitan Police Special Unit," a voice rang out, cold, authoritative, and entirely unbothered by the flashing cameras or the panicked murmurs of the reporters. The smart glass door slid open with a soft, pneumatic hiss. "Enter Lieutenant Unji." Clad in a fitted tactical trench coat over her pitch-black uniform, her dark hair pulled back into a razor-sharp ponytail, Unji radiated an aura of absolute, unyielding gravity. She didn't glance at the overflowing flower arrangements. She didn't look at the flashing cameras pressed against the glass outside. Her piercing dark eyes locked straight onto Haru, carrying the crushing, immovable weight of a woman who had never compromised a principle, accepted a bribe, or backed down from a fight in her entire life. She stepped inside, letting the heavy door slide shut behind her, cutting off the rest of the world and leaving them in a tense, isolated bubble. Mr. Kang, Unji said, her voice dropping into a quiet, dangerous register that demanded absolute attention. Your official police statement is a masterpiece of corporate fiction. You told my patrol officers it was a random street robbery by petty tech thugs. Yet our ballistics team pulled military-grade, armor-piercing cyber rounds out of your dashboard, rounds that are strictly restricted to the upper echelons of corporate security. Haru lowered his tablet, tilting his head with a slow, lazy, $1,000,000 smile that had charmed half the politicians in Neo-Seoul. Lieutenant Unji, I presume. If you're here to check my vitals, you're a bit late. My heart rate spikes only when I see poor ratings, and right now, we are peaking. If you're here for an autograph, the line is out in the hall, though I warn you, my left hand is currently out of commission, so my signature might look a bit rustic. Unji didn't blink. She didn't smile. She stepped right up to the bedside table and slammed a thick, classified federal dossier down onto the tray with a sharp, echoing clack. You knew the heat was coming, Unji stated, leaning forward slightly, her dark gaze burning into him. You've been digging into the Omnicorp data laundering ring for 3 weeks. You walked right into that underpass knowing they were tracking your vehicle, treating an attempted assassination like a cheap reality TV stunt for your evening slot. She paused, her expression hardening further into absolute stone. Listen to me very carefully, Mr. Kang. In my district, celebrity status does not grant immunity from common sense or the law. You are playing with live fire. And next time, it won't just graze your shoulder. For the first time all morning, Haru's effortless charm flickered. He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the subtle tension in her jaw, the fierce, burning integrity in her eyes. For all his power over the media, for all the corrupt officials he had brought to their knees with a single phrase, he realized he had just met a woman who could not be bought, scripted, or charmed. You're remarkably intense for 9 in the morning, Lieutenant, Haru murmured, his voice dropping its teasing edge, replaced by a genuine, unexpected curiosity. Has anyone ever told you that you're terrifying? Every criminal in Neo-Seoul, Unji replied flatly, turning toward the door without missing a beat. Heal quickly, Mr. Kang. Because the next time I see you, expect the absolute truth. While Haru sparred with the law in his luxury hospital suite, his personal life was a quiet, suffocating disaster playing out across the sprawling city. At home, his sister lived trapped inside a bitterly cold, loveless marriage, suffocated by an ambitious, narcissistic husband who treated her own career aspirations like an inconvenient hobby. Family dinners were psychological minefields where passive-aggressive remarks flew like shrapnel across the dining table. Their conservative parents relentlessly hounded Haru whenever he visited, demanding he settle down, marry a proper corporate heiress, and conform to traditional societal expectations. To Haru, traditional marriage looked less like a partnership and more like a life sentence. It was a living trauma born from watching his own parents endure 13 years of miserable, toxic compromise after his father returned from working abroad. They hadn't stayed together out of love, they had stayed together out of sheer cowardice, creating a household choked by unspoken resentment and bitter echoes. Haru used his work as a fortress, building a wall of fame and professional success so high that no one could ever get close enough to hurt him. Unji, meanwhile, was waging her own war on the neon-lit streets. Leading dawn raids against illegal corporate billboards, shutting down underground data syndicates, and arresting corrupt officials, she was a relentless storm. She didn't have time for romance, luxury, or comfort. She carried the weight of a broken city entirely on her shoulders, believing that absolute justice was the only thing worth bleeding for. Stay tuned for part 2.